Evening, everybody. Can I just get a show of hands that you can hear me okay and see the screen? Hi, Luke. Can to see you coming into the room. Can you raise your hand if you can hear me okay? All right, so for those that are in the room, if they can just give me a raise of a hand just to say that they can hear me okay. Just so I know everything's going okay. That's great. Thanks, Luke. All right, we're going to get going at 7 o'clock. Tonight we are live streaming on YouTube. So if you're connecting on YouTube, I want to actually be able to answer your questions, but you'll be able to follow along. If you want to ask questions, you'll need to register at our website so that you can log in and answer or ask questions so I can answer. Hi, Luke. Hope things are going good for you in Bulgaria. Yeah, I didn't see you yesterday. I was here yesterday, but I didn't see you. And then I was away for 2 weeks ill. So apologies for that. But hopefully I'm all good to go now and we shouldn't have any more gaps. Yeah, if you want to pop your email, I'll have your email from the registering today. I can send you. In fact, I can just give you the link. I'll give you the link a little bit later for yesterday's lesson. All right, so everybody just bear with me. We're going to get going at 7 o'clock. A couple of minutes to go. Just want to make sure that everybody that wants to come along gets along by 7 o'clock before we start. There you go, link. That's that link. Okay, everybody, welcome to this evening's ACY Securities webinar. My name is Duncan Cooper. Thanks very much for attending. Now, I am broadcasting live on YouTube tonight. So for those on YouTube, if you do have questions, I'm not able to follow the chat on YouTube. So I'm not able to answer your questions. If you'd like to ask questions, you just need to register and log in via the website. And if you're on YouTube and you want me to show you where that is, just bear with me. So for those on YouTube, if you go to acy.com, education webinars, then you can register for tonight's webinar very quickly and then jump on board, and then you'll be able to ask me questions if you want to. And in the future, if you want to attend any webinars, you can just come to this page and register, and then you'll be able to ask questions on the topic we're going through. All right. All right, so for those just coming in, if we can just read through the risk disclaimer before we get going. And as we're getting going and moving along, if you have any questions, just type them into the Q&A box. I've got the chat box open as well, but that being said, if you've got a question, try and keep it to the question box. It always makes my life easier. So this evening, we're going to be doing a live analysis webinar. I'm going to be using some of the tools I've been teaching in the beginner webinar series, so you can see how I'm using it live in the real market. If you don't know who I am, I'm your host, Duncan Cooper, Senior Market Strategist and Trading Mentor at ACY Securities. And a bit about myself, I'm a full-time Forex trader, been trading the Forex market now for more than 15 years and had the opportunity of mentoring clients for more than 10 years. If you need to contact me about the webinars, you can email me at education@acy.com. And if you want to connect with me, you can connect with me on the website. I do some market analysis, acy.com. You'll find me at the market news tab. You'll find my video analysis on the YouTube channel at ACY Securities Australia. And you can also connect with me on Twitter and LinkedIn there. So if you need to write those down, I'll just give you a few seconds to do so. All right, so just to give you an update where we're at within the beginner webinar series, we covered Fibonacci last night. Tonight's a live market analysis webinar, and then tomorrow, 7 o'clock Sydney time, we'll be going through MACD and MACD divergence. And over the coming weeks, the next 2.5 to 3 weeks, we'll be taking these other topics into play. And just to give you a heads up, next week, webinars will be starting at 8 o'clock Sydney time. Okay, so just make a note of that. Otherwise, you might be arriving a little bit early. All right, so let's get into the charts. And if you're new to the webinars, my charts will look different to what you can download. So just for the purpose of those who may be new, if you want to get my charts, so you can follow along within the webinar series and with my live market analysis that I'm doing, you can download these charts. So you should get an email tomorrow with a link that you can download this file. It's a raw file. It's called MT4 webinar configuration. So if I just double click on it, it will open up. And there's a video in here to show you how to do it. Just watch me doing it. It just takes 2 minutes. You just move these folders to within the MT4 platform, and then reopen the platform, and you'll get my look of charts. And once you've done that, what will happen is some extra buttons will get put along the toolbar here, some that I use in the webinars. It doesn't delete anything that you've already got. And in the templates drop-down menu here, it adds in, doesn't delete anything that you've already got, but it adds in these 4 templates: indices, megatrend, pivot points, daylight saving, and pivot points. You'll get those in there. Down at the bottom, in the profile section, you'll get my set of profiles. There's 12 pairs daylight saving, indices, and megatrend. Tonight, I'm using the 12 pairs daylight saving. These charts are adjusted for daylight saving in the Northern Hemisphere, so I'm using these at the moment. When we get into late October, we get a change, and then I'll be using the 12 pairs profile. But at the moment, using the 12 pairs daylight saving. All right, so you're more than welcome to download and install that. And in these profiles, you'll find that there's 12 currency pair charts along the bottom. Initially, they're set at 15-minute charts when you first install. And also there's a dollar index day chart. I'm not necessarily just looking at 15-minute chart time frame, but that's how they're set up when you download. All right, I've got a list of pairs I want to go through this evening. There's not necessarily trades just sitting up right now, but I'm going to go through trend, how I'm looking at trend, support and resistance, levels that I'm watching for price to get to, and then looking maybe to initiate a trade if something can set up. So it's not always the fact that I'll do a live market analysis webinar on something just setting up right now, because it's just one little snapshot window in the day. But I'm sure whether you're following on with my strategy or you've got your own strategy, whatever I go through this evening, you should complement what you're doing, hopefully, and give you a good idea of trend, support, and resistance. So firstly, I just want to touch base with the dollar index and the S&P 500, because you need to have an idea what's happening on these charts, especially the dollar index. So this is the dollar index daily. I'm just going to move back down to the weekly for the moment. And we've been a little bit range bound here, long term, on support here. Coming up to the top of this range, it's been failing. But as you can see, we're starting to move out of that range. So this is US dollar strength coming in. So pairs to the US dollar, like the euro US dollar, the pound US dollar, that means they should be going down, and we're going to see that on the chart. So starting to see a dominant US dollar strength here. So anything versus the US dollar should be going down, and a currency pair that's US dollar to, say, dollar yen, for example, at the moment is going up, dollar Canadian is going up, dollar franc's going up, because the US dollar side is getting stronger. Now, the other thing that's in play, so we've got US dollar strength at the moment, is the stock market, the S&P 500 as an example of what's going on in the stock market. And if you were in my Fibonacci webinar last night, I was using Fibonacci on this indices, but on the weekly chart, we've been having these massive uptrends since the March 2020 COVID-19 low. And I had said in previous webinars that this is getting overextended, but until we get a break of a weekly swing low, don't get too excited about any pullbacks. They're probably just short-term pullbacks within the overall trend. Now, this line here, I've just got it in to highlight the last higher bottom. And what you'll notice is we did break the last higher bottom. So this is actually taking the weekly chart into a downtrend. And I'm going through MACD tomorrow, but what I'm noticing on the MACD as well is that we've got some what we call negative divergence, indicators making a lower top as price is making a higher top as it's moving into that final top there at the moment. So they're in opposition. When we see that opposition, that's often a precursor to a major change in trend. Time will tell whether we do get a major change in trend, but there's certainly a change in trend coming in at the moment. Now, the US dollar is getting stronger, and move this down to the day chart. Had a fib drawn in from high to low across that weekly range. And we've had a 62% retracement, and I was emphasizing yesterday in the Fibonacci webinar, this will probably start to move down. Had a good day down yesterday. It may well move further down beyond this short-term low to the 127 extension. If it gets real strong, it might move down to the 162 in the short term. So I would monitor that, because if we're seeing weakness on this, that's going to translate to more US dollar strength. But as well, if this really gets weak, we might move into what we call a risk-off environment, where even though at the moment, if we move now to the dollar yen daily chart, which has been moving up to test this high of the year, if we get into a risk-off environment, generally the pairs to the yen will start to go down. And I mentioned this before. I've been watching this area quite a number of weeks or months to see where the price would fail here. And I was watching that at the start of the week, hoping that we would get a failure there, but we've moved up to the next higher level of resistance up here at 111.65. So you can see today we've tested that level, try to trade above it on the day chart, and we're getting a negative candle. So I don't know if this is going to hold there and start to pull back if we could get risk averse. This could be a very good level to see a strong reversal. And over the course of the live market analysis webinars I've been doing over the last month or two, just put this level in, it's 111.655. I've been anticipating we might get a major reversal on this pair. Obviously, it's still been going up, testing the high of the year. But my whole philosophy on this pair is when we go to the monthly chart, we're into an area of resistance up here. Some old monthly highs here. It's more prominent on the weekly. So we're coming up here, look left. There's another high just fractionally above. There's another high here that lines up with more highs up here. So what I've been saying is that when we've been getting above this top here, which was 111, anywhere above 111 for this pair is very expensive. You can see once we got above 111, this line here, got above and we collapsed. We got above and we collapsed. So again, we're getting above. Today we're rejecting at this high. And the question is the same historical viewpoint going to come into play? You know, if we get into a risk-averse environment, we could well see this move down strongly and retest support, monthly support, long-term support down at 102.59. I don't know if that's going to come along. Of course, if we just keep getting US dollar strength and the stock market doesn't look too risk-averse over the coming weeks, then this will probably just move on and up and through. But combination of what the dollar index is doing plus what is the stock market doing, if the stock market starts to collapse, we may well see this hold here and move down. So at the moment, so let's move it down back to the daily. We're just starting to put in a rejection candle there today. It's a bit too soon to say, let's get in and go and sell, but we're at clear resistance. On the 4-hour chart, what I'd like to see is, and I went through this in the Fibonacci webinar last night about the 4-hour trend continuation pattern. At the moment, the 4-hour trend is up. Higher bottom, higher bottom, higher top, higher top. So for me, if I want to trade a reversal down from up here, what I'd like to start to see is that the 4-hour trend structure, you know, changes its trend. Can we put in the lower bottom? Then do we have a rally back up? And we put in some form of lower top on the 4-hour chart, and then start to look for opportunities to sell on a lower time frame. All right, so I'm watching this for a failure at the moment. I'm not seeing, you know, I want to start to see the lower time frames really start to show a change in trend. When I say a lower time frame at the moment, a 4-hour chart. Does my 4-hour chart change trend? If it does, then I'm going to start to look down to a 15-minute chart for an opportunity to trade. All right, so I'm not seeing an opportunity yet, but you know, over the next few days or into the early part of next week, we might see that starting to come together, and then, you know, something might come together. All right, now I'm just going to start from the left-hand side here and go through what I'm looking at on the pairs. And some of the pairs are a little bit mixed. I'm really just focusing on where am I seeing price failing and rejecting and taking a trading bias on some of the pairs just by the fact that price is failing at a certain area. So this is the Aussie yen daily chart. And while we were in a downtrend here, we broke below this low. This is at 81.31. And this is a good resistance level the market's been playing around. Held, broke below, rejected here. I know we were going a bit above, but we weren't holding and moving back below. Then we came back above here. This is important to understand support and resistance, how it works. We did get above, but this particular candle here, see how it comes up and rejects that level? That's why I'm using that price level. Falls down. Yesterday came all the way back up, touched that level and rejected. So I'm looking now for an opportunity to sell, to trade back down to this daily level of support or this lower level of support here. So in the short term, obviously we need to break this level to get down to this level. So let's just draw that level in at 78,838. And then I just want to drop down the 4-hour chart. Now the 4-hour chart at the moment is still kind of showing an uptrend, higher bottom, higher top. So what I'd like to see is that price moves through these bottoms, then has some form of rally, ideally to the 62.79% level. There I'm just drawn up to approximate 62. And if I can see a failure then on a rally, dropping down the 15-minute chart to look to execute trade down. All right, now let's just drop it down to the 15-minute chart today and have a look at what's going on. Has anything been happening today that you may have been able to get in on a sell? Well, we've been failing at the central pivot, and I can see that we've had a trend line break. So closing through here, where my mouse is, 3 to 5 pips, could have been a sell entry just there. And at the moment it's traded down about 15 pips. So I've just marked in where, you could have been looking to sell around about that level, stop above the high. And if you hadn't looked at that and initiated that, you can see that it is showing you some profit right now. Obviously, we can't go back in time and execute, but this is showing you how you could have been initiating a trade there in line with the failure at resistance that we saw yesterday. All right, but I much prefer at the moment to see the 4-hour trend turn down. So I know that it's confirming that rejection at the top, and then look for an opportunity to sell. But there's been one there if you just wanted to execute directly off the 15-minute chart. All right, let's get into the Aussie dollar daily chart. I put a couple of lines in here. Overall trend structure is lower tops and bottoms here in the daily. And I've taken it up to the weekly and the monthly. It's a similar kind of affair. But looking for an intraday trade at the moment. The day trend is down, but also we've got some form of consolidation here at the moment. So I'm using resistance here at 73.16. That's where we failed last week on that candle just there. And we've got support coming in across here. And we can see for 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, about 8 trading days, we've been stuck in this range. So with the fact that the day chart is showing you lower tops and bottoms, and I know it's in a range here, I'm not that fussed about trading upwards within that range because the dominant trend is down on the day chart. So for me, if I move to a 4-hour chart, and you can see that range that's been in play, I'd much prefer to look 2 options here. For price to move back up to the top of the range, if he wants to get to the top of the range and look to initiate sell at the top of the range. Or, it might not get to the top of the range. You draw a fib in from high to low. It may only want to come up this time. The next move up may only want to come up to say 79%. That level there coincides with this resistance here. So I may only just want to get up to about 72.89. And then, I can look on a 15-minute chart for failure there. So at the 79% level, or up to the top here. In fact, hang on, I'm not drawn that quite accurate. From that high to low. So 79% is actually at 72.92. So I'm watching the 72.92 area. If we get back up to that, it's very close to the figure. So 72.92 up to about 73 would be ideal. Or even for a further retest of resistance up here at 73.16. Anywhere up in that area, I'll be watching for failure. Now, if we don't get much of a rally, or My next option to trade this pair would be to wait for a break of this support. I move down, let price then have a rally. Ideally, that support becomes new resistance. I'm looking for a failure then there to trade down. Okay, so that's what I'm monitoring. That's my, then come up with a proper word, my game plan of how I'm looking to trade, that pair, giving my game plan for all these pairs at the moment of how I'm looking at things. So I'm not keen to be selling anywhere near that level of support. I don't really want to buy at support here on this pair because the day chart trend is down too. All right, let's drop it to the 15-minute chart, see what's going on. It's a bit choppy and range bound at the moment. If you wanted to be real aggressive, let me just put my fib back in. Today, this could go back up today. It could come back up to the central pivot at the moment. All we're seeing it today at the moment is we've had 2 tests of the central pivot and it doesn't want to trade above. Now, another third test and failure. If that happens and you can get a tight trend line break, maybe you could take an aggressive stance and trade down to see whether support will break. My preferred option, though, would be, as I was saying, up here at the 79% level. It's close to a pivot, or up here at the figure would be great. But whether or not price wants to get up there, time will tell. Not seeing anything there, though, that I want to enter today in where price is at the moment. All right, let's get into the euro yen. A lot of these pairs a bit range bound. And you can see I've got the fib in there. It's failing at the 79% level of this kind of range. So I've got resistance on the euro yen on the day chart at 130.55, 8. You can see price just kind of popped above there a little bit. But if you need to support and resistance, this is resistance, and you want to have any idea about the fact that that resistance is holding, if there's any clue, let's blow this up a bit, this chart. All these daily candles, see how none of them are closing above that level. This one trades above a fraction. This one trades above, but couldn't close above. This trades above, closes below, trades above, closes below. So that's just telling you that the seller's there above resistance, pushing it back down. So a clear line of resistance, that's just telling you you'd have to wait for a clear break above there before you can become a buyer. Don't be buying anywhere near there. All right, so that's the top of the range. And this is the bottom of the range. I'll use this low here. It's 127.927. And as I said before about trend, when we went through trend, market trend, 60% of the time, market is in some kind of range. So we're holding the bottom of the range, we're trading backwards up. It hasn't quite got to the top of the range, a little bit shy of resistance. And if you draw a fib in, you can see that we're rejecting this layer of support here. That was our resistance at 130.11.7. And also the fib lines up there, and price has failed there at the moment. So what I'd like to see, like I've been saying on a lot of these pairs, is just see the 4-hour structure turn to down. So this is still higher tops and bottoms. This could still put in another higher bottom and want to move on up and through if it wants to. So I'm waiting for the 4-hour structure to turn down. However that looks at the moment, it would need to break that low, for example. Then have a bounce up. And then as it's putting in a lower top here on the 4-hour, look into the 15-minute chart to sell. Now, on the 15 today, if you're aggressive today, when you saw this coming up close to resistance, this should be an obvious area where you should be expecting sellers to come in. Price is coming up to resistance. That's where you're going to find selling pressure. With that in mind, and if you were taking a relatively aggressive stance, we had a trend line break up here. We fell back below this pivot, closed below at 3 to 5 pips around about here. Stop above the high. Sorry, wrong line. Stop above the high here. You could have been risking about no more than 16 to 18 pips. And we can see that price has moved down at the moment. About 60 pips before bouncing. All right, so there was an opportunity up there to sell if you wanted to be aggressive on a trend line break, very close to a known resistance area on the day chart. At the moment, though, I'm just waiting at the moment for the 4-hour structure to turn to down and then kind of see a trend line break to the downside like that on the chart. All right, getting to euro dollar. And let's get to the weekly chart at the moment. This is a very dominant, but we'll go to the monthly just to show you. We've got a lower top, lower bottom scenario here for me. Moving through this low here at the moment. That low's at 117.04. MACD is crossing down. When we got the last MACD cross down on the monthly, we had a very large move down. Good lengthy move down anyway. This cross here. Very good lengthy move down. So when you're seeing crosses down or crosses up on the monthly chart, it's usually telling you that if you're patient with it, you're going to see a relatively long move on the monthly chart. So that being said, that's going to be large moves on your weekly and daily charts. So monthly trend is quite clearly down and your weekly trend here is quite clearly down, and a bit of a double top up here. I've managed to get short around about 118. I'm hoping for a break of this area of support that we're heading into. So we've got an area of weekly support here, 116.64 that the market's contending with. So even though we know where the trend is on the weekly here and on the monthly, it's not always necessarily in the best position for you just to trade at. I don't want to trade into support. It's fine if I've already done a sell higher up. I'm just waiting for support to break. But if support doesn't break and I've just sold it, that's going to hurt. So we've got support at 116.64. We've got more support down here at 116.12 and 16.03, the 11600 number. So let's put in the 16.03 level as the lower level of support there. So obviously, if this is going to move further down, these two levels of support need to be negotiated. So we're trading at 116.68, 4 pips above the current level. And we're about, what, 65 pips away from the next level. So you don't want to be trading into those levels. Those levels could hold and market could reverse back up. Day trend, you can just see lower tops and bottoms here. So, you know, to be a trader here at the moment, move to the 4-hour chart, you probably want to see that level break first, because if it doesn't break, it's probably going to go up. Do I want to really go against the day chart trend? Not really. I'm seeing a very dominant monthly, weekly downtrend, but it can be very difficult to initiate a trade when you're on support in line with the trend. So you just have to be patient. So from a very simplistic point of view, like I've been showing on some of the other pairs, my game plan would be to wait for this to break below clearly. And then that level of 116.64 to become new resistance. And then trade down on a setup later over the next few days, however price comes together. All right, so I would just emphasize there's no way I'm going to sell into support. I'd like to see it break and then look for an opportunity to trade. Now on the 15-minute at the moment, an opportunity where you might be able to trade. See, it's come down to here and it's just chopping around on this level of support. It is getting rejections up here, a little bit higher up, but we've got no clear break here. You know, and if I said to myself, well, I want to get short today, if I can, if you look at the trading day yesterday, the 11700 level was good resistance. In fact, go back to the weekly chart for a moment. This low here at 117.04 has been broken. That is now resistance. So let me just put it in and we'll go back to the 15. You can see why yesterday it was holding underneath that level. 17.04 was broken. broke it the day before, starts to become resistance. Price is just getting resistance at the figure. So if we move back up today, up to 1700, 1704, that would be a great area to look to sell for the opportunity to price to move back down to retest support. So see how price is resistance here underneath that level of resistance, which was support. The same thing needs to happen here, really. This needs to break below support and then start to act as resistance like it shows here. So that's what I'm watching for. I'm happy to sell up here or waiting for a break below and then let that level become new resistance to trade further down from. All right, so just waiting, be patient and waiting. I mean, there's no way I'm going to sell it there. You could think, well, I think it's going to break and sell it, but my experience, you're probably going to be wrong. But sometimes you're going to be right because it's just going to break. But if I added them all together, 90% of the time, you're going to be wrong. So play the safer option. Wait for, this was support up here back in time. Wait for it to break, become resistance and trade down. To do the same thing there. All right, getting into next one, pound yen. Daily chart. Another one of these yen pairs that's in a range. A bit like a euro yen, you can see we failed up that resistance. I've got this level up here at 152.29, 151.92.5. We traded into the area and we rejected it heavily yesterday. And I would expect this is moving down to support. So it's rather range bound. When we get into the pound, that's in a very clear downtrend. So if the pound continues down, we might see a break of support through here on the pound yen. So in the 4-hour chart, this is already showing you lower tops and bottoms now. Broke this bottom through yesterday's trading. That's become new resistance. Let's just put that level in. And then let's see what's going on. And we can see that level of resistance held lovely. And if you're watching that earlier in the day, you could have maybe traded a trend line breakdown from that level. Starting it somewhere through here. Came up for another test of resistance, another test here, and it's been trading down now. Through the course of the day, this could well come back up for another retest, hold. We've got the figure here as well. So if it did, come all the way back up here again today, this is just a great area. It's proved to you already today. It doesn't want to go above the area. You could see another failure there today and another opportunity to trade down. Okay, not seeing anything to do right this minute because I've got no setup, but there was an opportunity through there. We had another opportunity through here to sell, and it may well give you another opportunity later in the trading day. All right, to the pound dollar, put to the weekly chart. I can even go to the monthly chart. This is just showing you that on the monthly, we've had a failure up here at resistance. Actually, the resistance comes from this support low over here, 142.7 back in time. So this is just giving you a good look at 142.427, I think I said. There we go. And you can, this is why you have to go back in time because it became resistance here, held here once more, and it's coming down now to some support tops here. Old resistance tops becoming support potentially. So down in weekly, I've got these two tops highlighted in. They're at 135.14, 134.82. So a little bit like the euro dollar, trends are down, monthly trends starting to move down from the top of the range. This weekly here, it's lower top, lower bottom, downtrend, just trading into support at the moment. So I know where the trend is, but I'm not just going to sell it right where it is. Ideally, it would have been great if you could sell higher up, and then you're just waiting for support to break. So, this might just start to trade down through. That would be great, and then you can look for an opportunity to sell once we've broken underneath. Or, for the next few trading days, we might hold here and bounce up. So this is the last level of daily support we broke at 136.09. So we could move back up. I'd be watching 136.09 as a level of now strong resistance and looking at that level maybe to trade down from. For our charts, just showing you downtrend here at the moment. I could draw a fib from the last lower top down to the low. If it keeps moving down, I'll just keep dragging it down. Just want to see what overlaps or doesn't. It'd be great if this moved a bit further down. So that's the 62% level, for example, came in and overlapped with the level of resistance like so. But, you might not want to do that. But in any event, that's how I'll be drawing my fib for the moment. And you might want to have a bounce and move back above this level of resistance into the 62.79% area. But in any event, I'm waiting for a rally, maybe from this level of weekly support, looking for an opportunity to sell once it rallies back up to some form of resistance. Now, it may not rally. At the moment, it's broken the first level of weekly support. That first level, you can see there in the candle. Let's move it to the 15. Now, the first level is just here. And we've been below, we're kind of sitting on top of it. That might start to become resistance. Who knows? Time will tell. Now that I move to the 15-minute chart, what I can see is my level of daily resistance that I've drawn in. Just a little bit below, we've got the figure. Just a little bit below that, we've got the central pivot. So we could bounce up today just to that area. Resistance, figure, pivot. So if price did come back up to that level and then fail, look for a trend line break to trade back down. So you're getting in higher up so that when we come back down and challenge support, if it doesn't break, it doesn't matter because you got in higher up. Well, I don't want to sell into support. So there's a number of pairs, euro dollar, for example, on this pair, they're just on support. We know where the trend is, but I would caution you about selling into support because support might hold. So waiting for support to break. There is 18, 28, 32 pips. There's an area of 32 pips of support here that we're trading into. And there's also the 135 figure number there. So we really need to break below 35.82. Then can we rally back up and 35.82 become resistance, trade further down? Time will tell. So we may well see a move back up the range in the short term. Could move back up to 36. Could even move back up to where it was yesterday at 37. But then if you start to see a failure, get yourself set to trade back in line with the trend in the hope that on the next move down, the buyers aren't where support is and support breaks. All right, I want to go through now the New Zealand yen and the New Zealand dollar just to finish up. And we've got a kind of a triple top area up here on the day chart. Clear level of resistance up here that the market's failed at. Let's move down to a low here. And it's putting in a lower top. So we don't have a perfect downtrend, although we've got a triple top to a bottom, putting in a lower top. We don't have a lower bottom, but I suspect this is going to move down, break below here. And then we could be moving down to re-challenge 74.55 over the next week or two. So with that kind of bias in mind, I can also tell you that if I put in a fib, we've had a 79% retracement. And now it's moving down that fib range. So I'd expect in the short term that we're going to break through this level of support, the 127 extension maybe. So with that in mind, just looking to see what the lower time frames are doing. Starting to see a downtrend on the 4-hour. So what I'd like to do is draw a fib in from the high to low. Just keep dragging that down if price keeps moving down until it starts to move back up. All right, so at the moment, for me, there's nothing to do because I want to see this come down somewhere, hold, have a rally. It'll never keep going straight down before wanting to have a bounce up and a rally. And then as it starts to turn back over, look to the 15-minute chart for a trend line break to the downside. Now, of course, I'm waiting for that rally at the moment, but on the 15-minute chart, has anything been showing today? Could anything show later in the day? That's how we're drawing the fib at the moment on the 4-hour. Back up here to the 79% level would be great. Getting close to the 78 figure number would be great. Whether or not we get up to that level, time will tell. If this does have some form of rally today, but it's just a minor rally, then, you know, as I've been saying with pivots in my pivot lesson, in a strong uptrend or a strong downtrend, this is a strongish downtrend starting to form. Price very rarely gets above the central pivot. So if we do move back up, we may well only move back up to the central pivot. So that would be an area that I would definitely look at. You can see yesterday, this is New York Open. So the high of New York session yesterday was there. Lines up pretty close to the central pivot. So that's where New York took control of the market and traded it down. And then we've been trading now down through today's trading sessions. So we may, you know, if we do get a rally through the remainder of London into New York, it might only get up to where New York took control, close to the central pivot. So I'll be watching that level maybe for an opportunity to sell if it gets back up to that level through the trading day. All right, last pair I want to go through this evening is the New Zealand dollar. And really just seeing, if I take it to the monthly chart, lower tops and bottoms forming here. We're having a month up in terms of trading, but the month's now negative. So we've traded above last month's high, but we're obviously negative for the month. So I'm anticipating we're nearly at the end of the month, one more trading day to go tomorrow, is, you know, traded up above yesterday's high of the month, finishing negative for the month, probably going to have another month down next month, would be my general viewpoint. MACD's trying to cross here. Things to consider if you're selling this pair and we do trade down through the course of next month or the next few weeks is this 67.55 level. That will act as some form of support, I'm sure, in the short term if we hit that level. So be aware of that level. On the weekly at the moment, because we traded above last month's high, it's putting a higher top. But don't be too fooled. Monthly candles very negative. Daily chart, lower tops and bottoms. So I expect the weekly chart will just fall back in line with the downtrend as and when it catches up. So this isn't a clear downtrend at the moment. So day chart trend is down. I'll be just looking for a rally on the 4-hour chart from the last lower top to the current low. 62 lines up nicely with this level of 4-hour hold support. In through there. 69.90 is that level. Another level of support there at 69.81. Any one of those two levels could hold the market on a pullback. All right, so at the moment, as we can see, it's rather negative. I'd much prefer price to have a rally first before, you know, initiating a sell. We haven't been able to get anywhere near the central pivot today. If we get any form of rally today through the rest of London into New York, Watch the central pivot. These two levels of support that's been broken, becoming resistance. The 69.90 level has a nice overlap with the 62% level and a pivot. So that would be a great level to look to initiate trade down from if we got up there today. And I'd watch the central pivot. I don't really like the 50% fib, because if it gets to the 50% fib, it'll often move to the 62. So that area to me is a little bit null and void. But I would certainly be watching central pivot or up to the 62%. And the level of resistance at 69.90, 69.91 in that area there. Now, whether or not it does get up to that, just showing what my game plan is for the day. If we can have a rally up there, then I'll be watching for failures. So looking for some form of rally on the 4-hour structure. Back to the 4-hour, you can see the 4-hour trend's down. Looking for a rally so I can sell from a higher point to trade down. So a number of these pairs at the moment, they've already moved down, just waiting for a rally point. All right, I'm just going to go have a click through the pairs that we've been watching. Just seeing what's going on. This dollar yen, even though the dollar index is strong, what we're seeing is on the dollar yen, it's failing at major resistance here. If we do get a risk-off environment, this is going to move down. So I'm just watching that to turn into a downtrend at the moment, to see whether that starts to come to fruition. All right, so look, see what's going on. Aussie yen's wanting to move further down. So if you did initiate a trade early in the day, that's just showing some more positivity for your trade. Aussie's a bit quiet at the moment. I really feel on the Aussie. Let's just go back to the Aussie's 4-hour chart where you can see the range. I really think at the moment, really need to see a clear break of this 72.20 area and then start to look for a sell. Or does it get back up to 73? All right, so euro dollar is getting below 116.64 at the moment. Still, I don't really like where it is. We're getting to those green pivots into the support zone of the day. I'd much prefer not to do anything and wait for a rally back up, or a breakdown and then a rally back up to 16.64. Okay. Pound dollar, not yet willing to commit below the level of support from the weekly chart. All right, everybody, any questions? Feel free to type them in. If you've got a pair, we've got 10 minutes to go. There's an instrument or a pair you want me to go through, then I'm more than happy to bring a chart up. All right, obviously I've given you plenty to look at there tonight. How I'm looking at pairs. Definitely the theme at the moment is US dollar strength. So pairs to the US dollar, you're going to generally be seeing those decline. And to me, the big question at the moment is, what is the S&P 500 wanting to do? Is it wanting to move further down? The other thing to consider, I'm just going to go to my browser. And I will often look at, let me just bring it up. News. I'll often look at CNBC just to get a flavor of what the major news headlines are for the market. Well, one of the ones is here. If you've been following the general news of the market, is that this building development company, whatever you want to give whatever the company does, Evergrande, property development company, big, large property developer in China, is having some difficulty paying its bond interest payments at the moment. So it's been spooking the market a little bit as to whether the thing's going to fall over and there's going to be some contagion in the market And some of the banks that have been lending money to it, will they fall over if this company falls over? So if that does happen, then what I've been talking about, the dollar yen, that's going to move down for sure. And this S&P 500 is going to move down for sure further. So these are the risk events that can potentially affect the market at the moment. And that's why I think, this dollar yen may well be topping out up here. So Luke is saying, does this also account for the pound yen? So if we see a risk-off environment, let's say Evergrande does go broke, it can't make its interest payments and it has to go into liquidation. And then if some banks go bust and it affects a whole bunch of other investors, any pair to the yen is going to go down. So when we get a risk-off environment, pairs to the yen will be going downwards. Now, what we are seeing is we're seeing some failure here in the dollar yen at major resistance up here. And, this year's high, last year's high, close to the high of the year before. So anywhere above 111, this pair doesn't like. Yeah, we're trading at 111.26 at the moment, but you start to see this underneath 111, this is probably going down the range in the short term. So if we have a risk-off environment, we're going to see dollar yen start to go down and any other pair to the yen starting to go down. So we just revisit all those pairs. They've all been back up to resistance in some form. Aussie yen back to resistance, rejected yesterday. Euro yen, let me just take some of these lines off so it doesn't get in the way of the daily chart too much. Euro yen, as I said, trade all the way back up to resistance. Look at that negative candle today. Pound yen, we had a very negative day yesterday from resistance. Negative at resistance. And whilst these pairs and the New Zealand yen, this is traded up. Failed up here with a triple top. We're failing at some form of resistance now because this high level here, 77,926. This is now being resistance for the market, that top. We traded above for a while. We held here. When we're in this area, I was saying that if this top doesn't hold as support, we're going to trade down, and we did. I think the week before I was ill, I was saying watch this area because if we break back below this low, we'll trade down. That area has now become resistance, and we're trading down from resistance. So, there's kind of a range from up here to there at the moment. So a lot of these yen pairs are in a large range. They've moved up to the tops of their ranges. We're getting a bit of risk-off environment coming into the market. Stock market's moving down. All these yen pairs are starting to move down. If the Evergrande situation escalates, we're going to see these move even further down. We might see the bottom of these ranges break, and we might see a big move downwards on these pairs over time. So, trying to get into a sell higher up the range at the moment on some of these yen pairs, might not be a bad idea, because if we get into a risk-off environment, things are going to start to move down. As I've been saying on the dollar yen, I've been watching this for a number of months to see if we could come revisit this 111 top. I was hoping on Monday, Tuesday it was going to hold here, but it hasn't. So I'm just waiting for a 4-hour structure to tell me that the trend is turning down on the 4-hour, and then seeing as to how much this can move back down. Now, if we get into a really risk-off environment, and you better see it happening in price action, Then when we did fail last time, up here that above 111, this is a day chart. It moved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 days. From the top there, it dropped 1,100 pips. So when things get really risk off, things can really move real quick. Now, I don't know if we're going to get a drop like that this time around. Might not get a drop at all. I'm just going, often history repeats. So it'll be interesting to see if we, evergreen goes bust. If it does, we may well start to see, a big sell-off like so. But just wait for price to prove it to you. At the moment, the 4-hour chart isn't changing trend. So this might just be pulling back before it wants to move through. But if it starts to put in a lower top, lower bottom scenario, that's telling you it's fading up there, and then we just have to wait and see how things progress. Okay then, everybody, I think I'm going to call it a day there. Thanks very much for attending this evening. Hopefully you got some good value from that. Tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock Sydney time, we've got the beginner webinar series on. I'm going to be going through MACD and MACD divergence. Touched a little bit on divergence tonight, but I'll take you through the whole topic tomorrow night. So if you've got the time, thank you, Lick. If you've got the time tomorrow, please come along and join me. If you've been tuning on YouTube, then thanks very much. I know I couldn't answer your questions because I can't see the chat, but if you want to join us regularly in the webinars, just hop on to our ACY.com website, get to education/webinars, and then you can see the up and coming webinars, and you just register there, and then you can join us in our Zoom webinar, and you can be able to ask me questions as well. All right. All right, everybody. So thanks very much for attending. And if you've got the time tomorrow, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. So have a great evening and stay safe. Thank you.